in today's session, we will be having a role play of the landlord and tenant problem. Here we have two people, Mrs. Reddy and Mrs. Chelappa, who are respectively the tenant and the landlord, and they are facing a problem in that one of them is not vacating the apartment that they are staying in. So then this leads to issues, and the association president, she is trying to assist them and help them out with the problem. So here we'll see how the mediation starts. The association president, and she is Mrs. Chelappa, the landlord of the apartments, and this is Mrs. Reddy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mrs. Sandhya. I'm the president of the Apartment Association. And I really appreciate Mrs. Chelappa and Mrs. Reddy to have come voluntarily today for this meeting so that they can resolve the issue between them. And I hope that both of you have the authority to take decisions on behalf of your husbands also, because it's equally important. And what I would like to tell you is I am going to be the neutral person here. I'm not here to make any decisions on your behalf. And I'm here only to facilitate proper communication between the two of you so that we can resolve the issue. Okay. And I request both of you to not to interrupt each other. I know they could get a little emotional, but still I request you to maintain the decorum by not interrupting each other. Be respectful to each other. Okay. And once an agreement has been reached mutually between the two of you, we would probably be going for an agreement which you both have to sign, so that we know that you're going to stand by the terms of the agreement. Okay. And all that we are going to discuss in the meeting today, it's going to be completely confidential. And today I'm meeting both of you. So if required, I might meet each of you singly also. And all such meetings would be confidential, and I'm not going to reveal it to the other party at any point of time, unless you give the consent to do the same. Okay. So shall we start?
Yes,
okay. Since Mrs. Chelappa was the first one to approach me regarding the issue, I would request Mrs. Chelappa to go ahead and tell us about the issue from her point of view.
I'm the landlady of the apartment in T Nagar, which is a plush area in the heart of our Chennai city that Miss Reddy has taken for lease. Our family has lived in this beautiful apartment of this plush locality for a considerable period of time. I was married into this house, God knows how many years ago. My husband, he's a very busy senior functionary in an organization. He got transferred that we decided to give our flat on rent. Had it not been the case, we would love to stay here only. Never a thought has had occurred from the past so many years to shift from here to somewhere else. Considering such attachment with the apartment, only on a well-wisher's advice, we gave the flat on rent to Miss Reddy. Before giving the flat on rent for a perfect stay, for their perfect stay, we got the flat distempered and done up exclusively. Then suddenly things changed. COVID-19 affected the world so badly. We're all aware of the same. Office routines shifted. Even my husband, he was assigned work from home. And everything that followed, we decided that we have to return to our place in such circumstances. And for that reason, also gave a notice to the tenant to surrender the flat for our personal use. Although Miss Reddy, she blatantly refused to do so before the said deadline. We repeatedly reached out to them, but they are not picking up our calls. No response at all. This made us so anxious, so anxious that we decided to visit our apartment. It would have been easier only if we did not witness the conditions ourselves that our flat is put through. With the keys deposited in the society, we opened the door of the flat, which was locked from the past 6 months. The condition of the flat, furthermore, is upsetting to me. Like water seeping in from the windows, water stains on the ceiling, peeling paint in the washroom. Considering that they've not been living in the apartment from the last 6 months, I do not understand the issue from their side. The irresponsible behavior of not picking up the calls at all is all the more confusing to me. When they are not staying in the apartment from the last 6 months, why can they not give our apartment back to us when we are in need of the same? It is our flat after all. What is the problem? I do not understand. Why can they not give it to us? Like, why cannot they vacate?
Okay, Mrs. Chellappa, from what you have told, I understand that you love your apartment a lot and you would like to come back to the place, right? And you're upset that your landlady is not picking up the phones. I can see you're visually also upset about it, that they're not picking up the phone regarding to talk about the issue, right? Also, you're upset about the this thing of the house, right? The upkeep of the house. You're not happy the way your house has been maintained and kept, right? So is there anything else that you would like to add? I see these three as the main issues from what you have told me. Anything else you would like to add?
Indeed, ma'am.
These are the three issues, right?
Ma'am,
Okay,
just this
so
one thing that
Yeah.
I am the landlady and Miss Reddy and her family are the tenants.
Yeah.
And they're not vacating our flat.
Yeah, I can see
Just
you're
a
upset.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I request Mrs. Reddy to talk about her issue regarding this conflict?
Yes, ma'am. Madam, firstly, thank you for inviting me to this meeting. Madam, I, along with my parents, my school-going children, and my husband, have been living in this apartment since we recently took it on lease. Both my father-in-law and my mother-in-law are a part of the senior citizen club here in the society. Every evening, they spend their time in the club, have made a lot of friends here. Even my children have made a lot of friends here. Hearing about their day after they return gives me so much of happiness. Madam, the COVID-19 pandemic hit in the year 2020 and my husband's employers announced work from home. The schools were closed, the domestic help was not allowed in the house. So we decided to move to our village. So in October, we shifted to our village for some time. Madam, while we were adjusting with the prevailing pandemic, and as if one problem was not enough, it was already tough for us. You see, people are losing their loved ones. And in midst of all of this, we started getting numerous calls from Mrs. Chellappa. Mrs. Chellappa was wanting us to vacate the flat immediately. She served us a notice for the same in the name of leaving the house in the middle of the pandemic. Madam, so many people are on their deathbeds and we're being asked to leave like this. This is unexpected. How can they expect us to move out in the middle of all of this chaos in this pandemic? Madam, moreover, our neighbors called me to inform that in our absence, Mrs. Chellappa came and checked our flat and did not find it properly maintained. Madam, I want you to know that I've always been very particular about keeping my house nicely, and I was deeply hurt when I saw that just because the apartment was locked and kept, my flat got into that state. I've always kept my house neat and tidy. Whenever my friends used to visit my house, they always used to compliment as to how nicely I've maintained my house. You would not find a speck of dust when you visit my house. Since the very beginning, Madam, I've been so passionate about it that I've kept many plants in and around my house. I've always given my best to take care of the house. And after doing so much, as much as I can to take care of the house. It is utterly upsetting to hear comments that it is not taken well care of, it is not maintained well. Madam, as an insult to this injury, Mrs. Chillappa has been repeatedly calling my husband, asking us to vacate, especially at this point in time when shifting is such a big problem. She keeps us calling ever so often, morning, afternoon, night. Is this the behavior that you would expect from such a senior person? Madam, so many people have lost their loved ones. So many people have lost their lives to this pandemic. Is this how you treat your tenants, especially in these testing times? Madam, my husband is a very busy senior functionary. He never gets angry, he's very understanding, would never indulge in any arguments. But these repeated calls are testing his patience as well. It's high time Mrs. Chillappa understands our problems as well. Madam, I've come here so that this problem gets solved. It's burdening for me to see everyone in the house lose their sleep because of this.
Okay, Mrs. Reddy, as I understand, you are upset that with the pandemic going on and so many deaths happening around, and in this situation, you're being asked to vacate your apartment, and you're upset about that. And people and Mrs. Chellappa or Mr. Chellappa, who has been trying to reach you out n number of times, calling you, and you're not happy about that, right? And also I find that you are upset about your reputation about maintaining your apartment clean. You keep your house really clean, and you feel upset that someone is questioning your reputation as a person who has not maintained the apartment, right? So I feel these are the three major issues from your side. So would you like, is that it, or is there anything else that you would like to add?
Madam, that would be it.
Okay.
The issues that were identified are: flat is not vacated. The second issue is condition of the flat. For landlord, it is upkeep of flat. For the tenant, it is the reputation about upkeep of the flat. The third issue is behavior and treatment issues. Because of the telephone not being answered, for the tenant Reddy, it is an issue of responsibility by the tenant. For Mrs. Reddy, the tenant, it is an issue of treatment of tenant by the landlord Chellappa. So can I request the mediator to proceed with the agenda setting and so on?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Mrs. Chellappa and Mrs. Reddy, since you both have a lease agreement, I would first like to ask Mrs. Chellappa the terms and conditions of the lease agreement for your flat.
Madam, the terms both of us signed and agreed while leasing the apartment for a couple of years included a security deposit of 3 months. It also contains a notice period of 3 months, which goes both the ways, and that the flat has to be surrendered in the very same condition by the tenant as has been given by us while leasing.
Okay, so Mrs. Chellappa, according to you, the lease agreement was for 2 years, and the to vacate the flat, either of you need to give a notice period of 3 months, and the flat should be handed over in the same mint condition that it was given to the tenant. Am I right? May I know the start date of your lease period? When did your
Madam,
lease?
the agreement was signed on 1st January 2020 and it expires on 1st January 2022.
2022. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Chellappa. Mrs. Reddy, are you aware of the terms and conditions of the lease agreement which you signed when you took up this apartment?
Yes, madam, as has been stated by Mrs. Chillappa, the lease agreement is signed for 2 years and there is a provision of a said 3 months notice period. That indeed is the case, ma'am. However, as I've told you before, my whole family enjoys a great degree of convenience here as we're able to avail all the facilities and amenities. Moreover, we've made a lot of friends in the complex. Everything wants us to stay in this house. I think we can chalk out a middle ground for resolving this issue.
So as I understand, Mrs. Reddy, you're aware of the terms of the agreement, which says that you have to give 3 months notice and that the apartment should be returned in the mint condition the way you have received it. But you're willing to go for a middle path. Am I right?
That is right.
Okay. So Mrs. Chellappa, now that Mrs. Reddy is willing to take a middle path, I would like to know what are your thoughts on this?
Ma'am, I am looking forward to an amicable solution through this. Moreover, I'd like to hear what Mrs. Reddy thinks about it.
Okay. So Mrs. Reddy, Mrs. Chellappa is willing to go for a middle path, but as per the lease agreement, even though the notice period has been served, she wants the flat should be given to the condition, same condition which you took over. So how would you like to do that?
Madam, I think at this point in time, I would want to share an unfortunate event that recently took place with my family. My father-in-law contracted COVID the past month and unfortunately we lost him. The event of his death has shaken our whole family. Just living a normal life has become so tough for us, let alone shifting houses, especially in the midst of this pandemic. And the fact that at this point in time, we are pestered with numerous calls and are being asked to vacate the house is something that, madam, we're not in a position to do. And that, I think, is one of the major concerns that we have today.
Okay. Mrs. Reddy, I'm extremely sorry to know about your loss and please accept our condolences. Mrs. Chellappa, in this light that, you know, her loss of her father-in-law in the pandemic, she is not able to vacate the flat. So I would like to know your thoughts on this. Is it possible that, you know, because of the loss of family, she could not receive your calls, or it's possible?
So, Mrs. Reddy, did you communicate with Mrs. Chellappa about your father-in-law's demise?
Madam, I could not communicate to Mrs. Chillappa. We could not inform her because there was so much going on around us. I hope that is understandable on Mrs. Chillappa's end.
So, Mrs. Chellappa, were you aware of the loss in Mrs. Reddy's family?
No, madam, I was not aware. I did not know about any of this.
Okay, so would you like to say something?
I'd only say that I'm extremely saddened to hear about this. And I just hope that Mrs. Reddy and her whole family is doing well. Believe me, Mrs. Reddy, when I say I understand your grief. My husband, he is very much emotionally attached to this apartment, as I already have conveyed before as well. As to why, that I tell, this apartment was bought by his father when he was a child. His father, who is not there anymore with us. And therefore, seeing the current condition of the flat is all the more heart-wrenching to us. I'd only say that my husband, who is willing to take this case to the court, I'd only like you, madam, and Mrs. Reddy, to try understand that I do not want this feud to expand. That will be all from my side.
So, Mrs. Chellappa, from what I understand is even you have an emotional connect with this flat. And because it was your father-in-law's flat and you have this emotional connect with this flat. And knowing the loss in the family of Mrs. Reddy, you are willing to not go to the courts to get your apartment vacated. So is that what you want to convey at this point, or you want to add anything to this? Okay.
Indeed, madam. And this is all the more why we want the original state of the flat to be restored, and then the flat be surrendered to us.
Okay. So you also want the flat to be restored in its original state before it's given back to you. Am I right? Okay. So Mrs. Reddy, now that you have heard Mrs. Chellappa, she is not willing to go to the court. She's willing to settle it off the court, but she wants the apartment in the same condition that she had given it to you. So what would you like to say about this?
Madam, now that this meeting has given us a chance to openly communicate about this, I think at this point in time, after hearing what Mrs. Chellappa and her whole family has to say, and that they're so attached to this house, I can understand where she comes from when she finds the house not being in the state that she left it for us. However, madam, as I've told you before, that I've always aimed to take care of this house in the best manner possible. I think what we as a Reddy family here can do is to get the house done up nicely as per the satisfaction of Mrs. Chellappa's family, and only then will we proceed to continue living in this house. Madam, at this point in time, in the midst of this raging pandemic, shifting our houses would be something which would be extremely tough for us. In that place, I think we can restore the house to its original condition. That is something that I'm really looking forward to do. And I would really like to know what Mrs. Chellappa has to think about it.
Okay, so Mrs. Reddy, you're saying that you're willing to get the flat maintenance done and restore it to the way it was when you took the flat, but you're you're still saying that it is difficult for you to shift from this apartment due to pandemic. Am I right?
That is right.
You want to add anything else to this, or at this point that's what you are?
I think at this point in time, the convenience and the fact that we have been living in this house matters the most, and it will be very difficult for us to leave.
Okay. So, Mrs. Chellappa, you just heard Mrs. Reddy saying that, they have this emotional connect to the flat and she is willing to maintain the flat and restore it and bring it back to the state it was when she took the flat. But she says it's difficult for her to move as of now because of the pandemic. So what is it that you would like to say on this? Now that she's willing to, restore the flat and give it back to you in the condition that you want it.
Madam, I'd say that my husband would not sue the MNC and will return the security deposit when the original state of the apartment is restored. Also, I would want to know, when will our house be surrendered to us?
Okay, so you are willing to return the deposit back to Mrs. Reddy. But what about the fact that she says she cannot shift right now due to the pandemic? And she has this emotional, the whole family is so much involved in this community that, it's difficult for her to move out of this community. So is there any way that you can work this out with her?
I understand Mrs. Reddy's part, as we are facing the very same issue which she is right now. And that is all the more why we are wanting to return to our place, our apartment. Henceforth, I kindly need her to understand that we are not asking for our flat before the lease expires, certainly because it is convenient, but because it is in need of the hour.
Okay, so Mrs. Chillappa, what I understand from your this thing is that you really want the apartment back, and you are insisting for the flat because it's a need for you. You really need the flat back. So, Mrs. and can you do anything on this in this regard? Because she says she's unable to shift and she likes the community very well. So is there anything that you can think about, any solution for this?
I would suggest the Reddy family to look for a house somewhere nearby our apartment, or probably in the same complex too. So the problem of shifting would also minimize. And there is this thing, why, Mrs. Reddy, even for a second, do you think that there is nobody to help you in this? We all will come forward to help you to get through with the same. Reddy family has made so many friends in our apartment too. And I am sure that they all would come to help you in any manner that they can.
Okay, so Mrs. Chellappa, you're saying that you would help Mrs. Reddy to look for an apartment nearby so that she doesn't miss the community. Am I right? But still you would like to have your flat back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Reddy, now that you have heard Mrs. Chellappa saying that she's willing to help you to find another apartment nearby, what is it that you would like to propose?
Madam, as has been mentioned by me before as well, I think the most pressing reason for us to live here, that in the midst of this pandemic, it will be really difficult for us to leave this house. People are actually contracting the coronavirus, and there are frequent lockdowns. I'll have to shift, I'll have to change my children's schools, I'll have to arrange for different facilities. I will lose access to the associated amenities, everything. And because of these problems which are associated with shifting in this raging pandemic, madam, it will be next to impossible for us to shift our entire household currently. Madam, at this point in time, while I understand that Mrs. Chilappa has emotional attachment to the house, given the fact that this place has now become a comfortable place for us also to live in, I think maybe we can work this out in some or the other way. I would suggest, if Mrs. Chelappa agrees, and I would really like to know about this, if we could make an advance payment of rent for the upcoming 6 months, and then probably we can envisage to continue living in this house. What do you think, Mrs. Chelappa?
Okay, so Mrs. Reddy, you're proposing that you would like to continue staying there for another 6 months and you would make the payment, advance rent payment for the apartment, since you find it difficult to shift to another apartment right now. Yeah. So Mrs. Chellappa, what would you like to say on this?
Madam, as I already mentioned, that this is our need. It is our need to get the flat back at this point in time, and not just for the sake of convenience that we're asking for the same. We are already fine with returning the security deposit, and therefore extending the period to furthermore 6 months would not suffice for us.
Okay. So Mrs. Chellappa, you're saying that this getting the apartment back is a real need for you and you cannot extend the lease agreement any further. Am I right? Okay. Mrs. Reddy.
Madam. Also,
yeah, sorry, please.
We will readily be helping Mrs. Reddy and her family when it comes to shifting to any place that she'd be accommodating in the next certain time, if at all. It's just we really need our flat back at this point in time.
Okay. So you are also willing to help her to shift. That's another point you have just made. Thank you. So Mrs. Reddy, you heard Mrs. Chellappa saying that she really needs the flat and she's willing to help you to shift in any accommodation nearby which you would like to move to. And she cannot extend the lease any further because of the need. They really need the flat right now. So, but they're willing to help you to find a place. So what would you like to propose now?
Ma'am, I think at this juncture, if I reflect on to what Mrs. Chelappa has to say, I think as far as she's willing to help me find a new house nearby or maybe in this apartment itself, I think shifting would not be as big as a problem as I currently perceive it to be. And I think as much as I want to continue living in this house because this has been a wonderful place to live comfortably, I think I will be amenable to shift my house probably within a month or two. And as I understand that Mrs. Chelappa needs that. And now I have developed some faith in being able to find a new house and then subsequently shifting. Madam, with this, I think I also see this as an opportunity to restore the friendly relations with Mrs. Chelappa. And that is something, again, that I'm looking forward to as well.
Okay, so Mrs. Reddy, from what you're saying, you're willing to shift to another apartment nearby and you would like to maintain the regular friendly relationship with Mrs. Chellappa. Am I right? And anything else?
That would be it, madam.
So Mrs. Chellappa, what do you have to say? Because Mrs. Reddy says she's willing to shift if she finds a suitable apartment nearby with your help. And so what do you think? But she may need a month or two to find a place.
That would be all right, madam. I would love to host your family.
So from both the parties, what I understand is you're willing to, Mrs. Reddy is willing to vacate and you're willing to take up the apartment within a reasonable period of time. And you will give the flat back in a proper condition the way you had taken it up, Mrs. Reddy. And I hope the misunderstanding you both had regarding the telephone calls has also been resolved. Am I right?
So the issue of maintenance of flat was resolved. Issue of telephone calls was resolved with the help of emotional connect. Like once the disclosure about, death in the family and death of father-in-law, this disclosure was done. You could see that there was a little bit of mellowing down on the side of both parties. And this kind of, it took care of issue of telephone calls on its own. Like there was no mention of it any further. And after that, the focus shifted to shifting of the place, shifting to a new place, the flat, and shifting related issues, and the advance payment of rent. So towards the end, both of them appeared to be reasonably happy with the resolution, which is what mediation aims to do and is about. Okay, so with this we end the session on setting of agenda. Like this, as in when we are going, when new issues come up, we have to write it down here, issue, shifting related issue, and what can be the solution. And here Vandana has written some time to be provided. This can be discussed. Such areas, when they are as a mediator, when you're sitting, what is the time frame to be provided? Towards the end, this was discussed. And this is how we do solution generation. And the difference between other methods and mediation is the solution generation is in the hands of the two people. Yeah, if they decide that this is okay, see, they have even waived off the lease deed and things like that. They decided that it didn't matter to them anymore. So that's about mediation. See, the biggest problem that mediation is facing now is how can a settlement between two people just like that with a third person who may not be a legal entity, how can you give it so much of value? This is what everybody is saying. And to a certain extent, even I feel that way. For small cases like this, it's okay. But, as you move along, when the issues become big and, then a certain amount of sticking to rules and all is required. So in tomorrow's session, I'll just tell you the parameters that are set for solution generation. Okay. So with this, we end the session for today. Thanks for being there.